All right, strap in, everyone. Today, we are going deep into the world of aviation.
Should be a fun ride.
You bet it is. You know, you sent me a mountain of info on this. Articles, Wikipedia, even some historical FAA documents.
Well, you said you wanted to do a deep dive, so...
I do, and that's exactly what we're going to do.
Awesome.
We're going to go from those first kind of rickety flights all the way to supersonic jets.
Oh, and we can't forget those regional hops.
Absolutely. And even, those electric planes that are kind of starting to buzz around.
Those are pretty neat.
They are. So much has changed in just over a century. Like back then, just getting a plane off the ground, that was a huge deal.
It really was. A miracle, almost.
And now we're just like casually jetting across entire oceans.
Yeah, it's become so normal.
It really has. But it's easy to forget that getting here, it wasn't always smooth sailing.
Oh, definitely not.
Every era had its own, hurdles to overcome.
Some scary moments, for sure.
And so many people working behind the scenes to make things safer.
Unsung heroes, a lot of them.
Yeah, totally. So what we're going to do today is kind of uncover the stories behind all of that.
Sounds like a plan.
From those first brave souls, the ones who just dreamed of flying.
Yeah, the real pioneers.
To the amazing work of organizations like the FAA. They're constantly working to make things safer up there.
Keeping those skies safe.
Right. It's incredible. So how did we get from hot air balloons to, jets in just a little over 100 years?
That's the question, isn't it?
What were the big, the key innovations that really changed things?
The events that shaped the whole industry.
Exactly. And by the end, I hope you'll have a much better understanding of how we got to where we are.
Literally.
Literally. All right, so to understand how far we've come, we really have to start at the very beginning.
Before planes, before engines.
Back when, it was just people with a burning desire to fly.
A dream, really.
But it wasn't just some, whimsical thing.
Right.
They were figuring stuff out, right?
Absolutely. They were laying the groundwork for everything that followed.
Wow, that's such a good point.
Grappling with big questions.
Like what?
Like, how do you actually make something fly?
Right. The basics.
How do you control it?
Yeah, so you don't just, float away.
And the big one. How do you stay up there in the first place?
So this is what, the days of kites and hot air balloons and, those crazy contraptions Da Vinci sketched out.
Oh, yeah. The flying machines.
It's amazing to think he was imagining all that so long ago.
He was ahead of his time, that's for sure. But think of all those early attempts. Those were the building blocks.
Yeah.
Each one teaching us a little bit more about how flight actually works.
Even something as simple as a kite?
Yeah, a kite. It's all about finding the right balance, right?
Right, lift and drag.
Exactly. But even a kite is contributing to that, fundamental understanding of how to conquer the air.
We can't forget about Lagari Hassan Chalabi, the Ottoman scientist.
Oh, yeah, back in 1633.
He strapped himself to a rocket.
Can you imagine?
With 7 wings on it.
7 wings, that's dedication.
What a daredevil.
It just highlights that human desire, doesn't it?
To fly.
Yeah, to take to the skies.
And that's something that's been around for centuries.
But as we move into the 19th century, things start to change.
How so?
It becomes more scientific.
Less about strapping yourself to a rocket with 7 wings.
A bit, yeah. Enter Sir George Cayley.
The father of aeronautics, right?
That's him. He was a true visionary. He went beyond those, whimsical attempts.
And started applying science to it.
Exactly. Cayley started to apply real scientific principles to his designs. This is where we start to see gliders emerge.
Oh, gliders were so important.
Absolutely crucial for paving the way for powered flight.
Cayley was really ahead of his time. He didn't just build random contraptions.
No, he was meticulous. He studied the forces at play.
Lift, drag, all that.
Yep, he meticulously studied those forces to design gliders that could actually sustain flight.
So they were more than just, falling with style.
Way more. They were flying laboratories, really.
Oh, that's a cool way to put it.
Allowing those early aviators to experiment.
With different wing shapes.
Exactly. And figuring out how to control the gliders.
That must have been so exciting to be part of those early experiments.
Oh, I can only imagine. It was a time of discovery.
Learning by doing. And of course, sometimes crashing.
That too. But from those experiments came a deeper understanding of aerodynamics.
It's crazy to think those simple gliders were so important, but it makes sense.
They laid the foundation.
And Cayley's scientific approach, that really set the stage for the next big thing.
Powered flight.
And that brings us to the 20th century, right?
Right. The dawn of a new era.
Yeah.
A time of excitement.
And a lot of competition.
Oh, yeah. Everyone wanted to be the first.
And this is where the Wright brothers come in.
The Wright brothers meticulously documenting every experiment.
They were so careful, testing different wing designs, and then bam!
1903. First successful powered flight.
Iconic. But, you know, there's always that bit of controversy with Gustav Whitehead.
Oh yeah, Whitehead.
He claimed he flew even earlier.
He did.
It makes you wonder, like, what actually counts as the first flight?
That's the debate, isn't it?
Is it just getting off the ground? Or is it more about control, sustained flight?
A safe landing. There are so many factors to consider.
Right. What do you think is the most important?
For me, it's that combination of control, sustained flight, and a safe landing.
That makes sense. It can't just be a quick hop. You have to be able to control it.
Exactly. That's what really matters.
And I totally agree. But regardless of who was truly first, there's no denying that the early 20th century was a time of incredible innovation.
Oh, for sure. Especially in engine technology.
Right. The engines themselves were like amazing feats of engineering.
They were. But they came with their own set of challenges.
Like what?
Well, think about the early rotary engines. The whole engine spun with the propeller.
Whoa, really? The whole thing?
The whole thing. Can you imagine the gyroscopic forces involved?
That sounds a bit terrifying, honestly.
I can only imagine how difficult it was to pilot those early aircraft.
They must have been quite a handful.
They were. But eventually, rotary engines gave way to radial engines.
Radial engines, what are those?
They have a stationary crankshaft, and the cylinders are arranged in a circle around it.
Interesting. So why were those better?
Well, they offered a lot more power and efficiency and more stable flight, which is obviously a good thing.
Oh, for sure. Safer and more reliable.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got gliders paving the way, the Wright brothers making history, and engines rapidly evolving. But then World War I breaks out.
And suddenly, aviation takes on a whole new role.
It's crazy how war often accelerates technology, right?
Absolutely. World War I was a major turning point for aviation.
Planes are being used for reconnaissance, bombing raids.
And those thrilling yet dangerous dogfights.
It's kind of mind-blowing to think of those early pilots, you know,
Up there in those fragile aircraft.
risking their lives.
It was a different time, that's for sure.
But from a technological perspective, World War I really forced things to move quickly.
It was a crucible for innovation. Engineers had to come up with new solutions, and fast.
And those innovations, they didn't just disappear after the war ended, did they?
No, not at all. They had a huge impact on civilian aviation.
Think about it. Safer, more reliable aircraft emerged directly from those wartime advancements.
So in a way, those innovations actually made flying safer for everyone?
Exactly. For instance, more powerful and reliable engines, refined aerodynamic designs, even the parachute, all those things have roots in World War I.
Well, I never thought about it that way.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Totally. It's a reminder that progress often comes at a cost, but those wartime innovations laid the foundation for the next chapter in aviation.
The rise of commercial flight.
And that's a story for another segment.
Indeed. We'll save that for next time. But before we move on, what stood out to you most about those early days of aviation?
That's a tough one. But I think it's the spirit of exploration and ingenuity that really fueled those early years. They were pushing boundaries, taking risks.
It was all so new. Everything was a discovery.
Exactly. Their achievements, they laid the groundwork for everything that followed.
That's a great way to put it. It's inspiring, you know? The pursuit of flight, it was about pushing the limits of what humans could do.
And conquering the skies.
Exactly, conquering the skies. Okay, so we've covered those early pioneers, laying the foundation for powered flight, and how World War I really pushed things forward.
It was a game changer.
Totally. But now let's talk about how flying went from, like, a wartime thing to something that people actually wanted to do.
The birth of commercial aviation.
Right.
And it actually starts, believe it or not, just a few years after the Wright brothers.
No way, really?
Yep, 1914, across Tampa Bay, Florida.
Wait, what? Across a bay. That was the big debut of passenger flight.
It was a short hop, just 23 miles.
Wow, humble beginnings.
It was. But it was a pivotal moment. It sparked people's imagination. Suddenly, air travel, it wasn't just a daredevil stunt anymore.
It could be a way to get around.
Exactly. A viable way to transport people.
So did everyone just, like, immediately jump on board?
Not quite. Those early passenger planes were, well, let's just say they were a bit rough.
How so?
Think open cockpits, noisy engines, and not exactly a smooth ride.
Oof. Yeah, I can imagine.
But over time, designs improved, comfort got better, and most importantly, safety increased.
Gotcha. So things were slowly getting better.
Slowly but surely. And then came the game changer. The Douglas DC-3.
Ah, the DC-3. I've heard about this.
The impact of this aircraft can't be overstated. Reliable, comfortable for its time, and a really impressive range.
Really made long-distance air travel possible.
For a lot more people. It really ushered in that golden age of air travel.
Connecting cities and continents.
Like never before.
Wow. I've also heard that some DC-3s are still flying today.
You're right. Incredible, isn't it?
That's amazing. Talk about a lasting legacy.
It's a testament to just how well designed that aircraft was.
So things are humming along. Commercial aviation is taking off.
Pun intended.
Maybe. But then, bam, World War II.
Another turning point.
And the jet engine arrives on the scene.
Talk about a disruptive technology.
It totally changed the game.
Propelled us right into the jet age.
Speed and altitude were taken to a whole new level.
But of course, supersonic flight, it brought its own challenges.
Oh, I bet. Like those sonic booms.
Exactly. That thunderous crack you hear when an object breaks the sound barrier.
You don't want that over your house.
Not really, no. It was a major concern, especially for flights over populated areas.
Makes sense.
But there were other challenges, too. Metal fatigue at those speeds.
Oh, right. The stress on the materials.
Exactly. And managing the intense heat from those powerful engines.
Oh, yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
And then, of course, making sure it's safe for passengers at those high altitudes.
It's pretty incredible when you think about it.
It is. And from all of those challenges came some amazing engineering achievements.
Like the Concorde.
Ah, the Concorde. The ultimate symbol of supersonic luxury.
Sipping champagne at twice the speed of sound.
It must have felt like stepping into the future.
It did, for a while. But sadly, the Concorde, it's gone now.
You're right. It wasn't meant to be, I guess.
Too expensive.
A few factors, actually. Operating costs were high. Passenger capacity was limited. And then there was that tragic crash in 2000.
Right. Air France Flight 4590.
That definitely played a role in its grounding.
It's a good reminder that even with amazing technology, there are still limits.
Absolutely. Whether those limits are economic or related to safety.
Or both.
Often both, yeah. The Concorde story shows that tension between what's possible and what's actually practical.
Totally. But even though the Concorde is gone, that dream of supersonic travel...
It's still alive.
It is.
Oh, yeah. There's actually a renewed interest in supersonic flight, especially for business jets.
So faster than sound travel might be back on the menu.
It might be. We'll have to see.
That's pretty exciting. But alongside those high-flying ambitions, there's been another big change closer to the ground.
Oh, you mean regional jets?
Regional jets, exactly.
They've been a game changer for short-haul flights. Smaller, more fuel-efficient, perfect for connecting smaller cities to those big hubs.
It's made flying more accessible.
For sure.
Yeah.
Opened up all kinds of travel possibilities.
It's amazing how diverse the world of aviation has become. Huge jets crossing oceans, supersonic dreams on the horizon, and then this network of regional jets.
Connecting communities.
It's really incredible.
And all of this is happening while material science is revolutionizing how aircraft are designed.
Oh, right, like composite materials.
Exactly. Take the Boeing 787 Dreamliner. It's mostly made of composites. Lighter, stronger, and way more fuel efficient.
So composites are like the secret ingredient in modern aviation.
You could say that. It's a major trend. They make aircraft lighter, more durable, and it allows them to fly farther on less fuel.
Which is good for everyone, right?
Okay. Right. Airlines save money, and it's better for the environment. It's a win-win.
I like win-wins. But amidst all this talk of commercial jets and supersonic speeds, let's not forget about, the other side of aviation.
What do you mean?
The people who fly, not just to get from A to B, but for other purposes.
You mean general aviation?
General aviation, yeah. That's a huge part of the story.
It really is. The backbone of the industry, I'd say. Connecting communities, supporting businesses, and really fueling that passion for flight.
Exactly. So many people are involved. Crop dusters, air ambulances, flight instructors.
And just everyday people who fly because they love it.
And, of course, the iconic Piper Cub.
Ah, the Piper Cub. A classic for a reason. Simplicity and accessibility.
This beautiful plane.
It really is.
Yeah.
It reminds us that aviation isn't just about big airlines and fancy tech. It's about that fundamental desire to just get up in the air, experience the freedom of flight.
I love that. And speaking of freedom, there's something new happening in general aviation. Electric planes.
The future is electric.
Yes. It really seems like it. And it's coming to the skies now, too. Quieter, more environmentally friendly.
And they might even be cheaper to operate.
It's exciting to see where this technology will go.
It is. But with all these advancements, from those early days to now, one thing remains absolutely essential.
What's that?
Safety.
Oh, of course. Can't forget about safety.
And that brings us to the story of the FAA.
The FAA, right. They're the ones who keep those skies safe.
They do a lot of work behind the scenes that most people don't even think about.
It's easy to take it for granted. But their story, it's fascinating, runs parallel to the entire history of aviation.
It does. They started small, with roots in regulating airmail.
Airmail, wow, so early on.
Yeah, but their role expanded dramatically as air travel became more common and more complex.
Yeah, it's incredible how their story is like so closely tied to how flying has evolved.
Totally. They've had to adapt constantly to all the new technology.
New challenges from, those first passenger flights.
To the airspace we have now. Super complex.
And I'm guessing it wasn't always easy.
Oh, definitely not.
Yeah.
There were some pivotal moments that really shaped how the FAA operates. Often, unfortunately, those were tragedies.
Yeah, those accidents that highlight just how important safety is.
Exactly.
You're thinking about the Grand Canyon mid-air collision back in 1956, right?
Yeah, that was a major turning point. Devastating loss of life.
I can only imagine.
It really forced the industry to take a hard look at things. How we manage airspace led to some really big changes.
Like what?
Well, more sophisticated air traffic control, stricter training for pilots, and a big focus on preventing another disaster like that.
So those dark moments, they actually push things forward.
In a way, yes. Made air travel much safer, led to better systems.
Progress through tragedy. It's a tough lesson.
It is, but a necessary one. And we're all safer because of the changes that came from it.
Makes you appreciate just how much the FAA does. It's so much more than just those control towers you see at airports.
Way more. Constant monitoring, regulations, so much behind-the-scenes work.
Most people don't even realize it's this huge, interconnected system keeping everything running smoothly.
Keeping millions of people safe every single day. It's quite a feat.
It really is. And they're not stopping there. Now they're even dealing with commercial spaceflight.
A whole new frontier.
It's wild, right? From those first shaky flights to, spacecraft blasting off into the unknown, the FAA has seen it all.
They have. It's amazing how aviation keeps pushing those boundaries. And as we start to do more with space travel, the FAA's expertise, it becomes even more crucial. Airspace management, safety regulations, all of that.
It's pretty mind-boggling. Just over a century ago, we were barely getting off the ground.
And now, supersonic speeds, regional jets connecting towns, commercial space travel becoming a reality.
I mean, that's got to be the biggest takeaway, right? The speed of progress.
It is astonishing. In just over 100 years, we've gone from those rickety first flights to a world where air travel is, well, it's almost mundane, and space travel is just around the corner.
It really shows what humans can do when they set their minds to something, and the desire to explore, to push the limits, that's never gone away. So, to everyone listening, next time you see a plane flying overhead,
take a moment. Think about how we got here.
All those amazing people and innovations, it's a pretty incredible story.
It is.
Maybe it'll even inspire some of you to be part of what comes next.
The next chapter in this amazing story.
The sky's not the limit anymore, is it?
It really isn't.
Well, this has been an amazing deep dive.
I've had a blast.
Me too. Thanks to everyone for listening.